Welcome to Go Green Radio, everybody. So glad that you could join us today. It is fire season and it's time to start talking about how to prepare for that. Our guest today is Nicholai Allen. He's a wildfire expert, he's a firefighter himself, and he's the founder of a company called soss, which we're going to talk about as well. Today, we're going to talk about how to prepare your home for a wildfire. We're going to talk about some other items as well. And so I'm really excited to have Nicholai join us on Go Green Radio. Welcome to the show, Nicholai.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'd love to have you start by talking about your own experience with wildfires near your home and how that prompted you to help other homeowners get prepared.
Yeah. For me, it really started as a father and homeowner after the Woolsey fire. We experienced the chaos trying to evacuate with congested traffic and low visibility, smoke in the air. I was trying to leave my house and go to a relative's house, but by the time I was trying to get there, they had to evacuate there. Then we were all planning to go to the coastline and meet up there. And then by the time we were going to the coast, we had our 92-year-old grandmother with us as well. And by the time we were getting there, we couldn't stay there. The whole family had to go even further south. So it was that situation. I had the kids and the pets with me, my wife, and also trying to communicate with, uncles, grandmothers, and other relatives of just through that chaos. And that made me realize, just as a parent, and then as a homeowner, that this is something to be taken very seriously and something to prepare for. And after that, I saw in the aftermath how some homes were saved, some got retardant drops, some didn't. And I thought at that time, what if homeowners could do essentially their own, fire retardant drops? Because that's part of the reason that you don't want to leave, is because you feel like you're leaving your home vulnerable. So that's what actually started the development process. But Safe SOSS took, over 5 years to actually develop.
Gotcha. I live in Northern California, and I'm originally from Illinois, and we really never talked about wildfires there. And so when I moved to Northern California, I wasn't really scared of wildfires. I didn't get it. But after 2018, when the Camp Fire burned Paradise, California, then I began to associate things like windy days with fire risk. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that many of the homes that are lost in wildfires aren't on the front lines of the fire. And so talk to us about this, how the wind impacts uh, what may be a real risk to the home.
Absolutely. So at the time of the Woolsey fire, my house at the time, it was in the wildland urban interface too. Now I'm at the top of a mountain and really in the highest, risk zone there is. So I employ these tools that we're going to talk about at my own house before I leave, because I'm usually out at a fire when fire's hitting my house. But the most common misconception, and certainly it was mine at the time, was I'm like 8 houses away in from the mountain. There's no way that they don't have the resources to let it burn through 8 whole tracts of homes, so my home will be fine. But that's actually not the problem. It's not just the direct fire front that's coming towards your house, it's the windborne embers. And that's how, in a lot of fires, the destruction looks so spotty, because embers could get in through your gaps in your garage door, your attic vents, your crawl space vents. And if embers get inside your structure, they can actually catch it on fire from the inside out. By the time you're even seeing those flames coming out, it's often too late to save the whole house. And it takes an incredible amount of resources. So now, instead of those resources prepping homes, or putting down water around homes to stop the direct fire front, now they're on structure mitigation, where they're actually trying to put out a fully consumed house that could, if it's close enough to another house, could then burst those windows and catch that house on fire. So it's really up to all of us to change a little bit the way that we think. You said you were from Illinois. I always make this reference. It's like if you live in the snow or in an area where you know it's going to snow seasonally, you have a snow shovel, you have scrapers, you take certain precautions. We have to start doing that with wildfires to where we live in a wildfire prone area. We have to take certain steps and get educated a bit more on how we can prevent those windborne embers from getting into our structure and catching it on fire, which is actually the leading cause of structure loss due to wildfires. It's not actually the direct fire front. And I'll say that about evacuation too, is when we're ordered to evacuate, you might look outside and there's smoke in the air. You might see some ash. Um, you might not see direct flames, and you might think, why am I evacuating? I don't see direct flames. But in order for us to get fire engines and resources into where you're living in order to protect your homes, we need residents out, not panicking and gridlocked and trying to get out when we're trying to go in. So that's one of the reasons that they evacuate early. They also have access, the local fire authorities, to wind forecasts and shifts in wind and what the fire is doing, and they can predict quite well based on topography and wind shifts as best they can what areas might be affected. So if your area might be affected, it's better that you have these preps done well in advance and you evacuate early, so you're not evacuating during, with toxic smoke in the air, little to no visibility because the smoke is finally right on top of you, other panicked neighbors or residents, and congested traffic. So there's a lot of things that you're actually evacuating from than just the direct fire front.
Boy, that's a great point. I kind of want to shift to precipitation because, sometimes we don't link what happens in the winter with what might happen in the summer. Talk to us about how the low snowpack this year in the Pacific Northwest might increase wildfire risk this summer.
Absolutely. And I'll just say that those patterns definitely have an effect on fires, but the fires can be an all round thing. And I think it's best that you have the tools and the knowledge on hand and you're prepared for any season, and not trying to, be a meteorologist and try to figure out the weather yourself. But it's a very good question, and not to overly create fear, but what you're saying is totally on point, because we had a very low snowpack. I mean, under 10% of what it normally is. So what that means is that vegetation didn't get the moisture that it normally gets. It'll normally snow, cover that snow melts, and it's called live fuel moisture. And when even if the humidity is starting to get low, but you have live fuel moisture in the vegetation, the fires won't burn as fast. But if you have a very low live fuel moisture, which is what happened because of the low snowpack, and humidity gets down and the temperatures get up, and if a fire then starts, like we're seeing, up in Oregon right now, and even Northern California, the last complex fire was the gold complex up, probably near your area. So it's something that's very relevant to that area now. And if you pull up, for example, the Watch Duty app or Genesis app, you can see where the fires are, and it's almost in the low snowpack area. So it's extremely relevant, but it's not something that you can always predict, except to know that there was a very low snowpack, and you should definitely act right now and act fast for this year's activity. And hopefully it's not, too late for you to do some preparations right now. All that to say that even when we do get a normal snowpack, I would still treat wildfires very seriously and get your preps done.
Agreed. And I think that's a great point. And we're going to go through the steps now on your website, safe, SOSS, .com. people can walk right through these steps. So I encourage our listeners to get out on your website and follow along. But step one is defensible space. And firefighters have been trying to get this point across for a long time. Talk to us about what defensible space is and exactly what we should be doing in order to create it around our homes.
I'll start by saying that the firefighters that and the mentors, people I've worked with that were former hotshot superintendents, they were, in fire for 30 plus years. They're fuel specialists. Everyone I meet on the fire line, and you meet a lot of strangers, especially on a complex fire when divisions are coming in from out of state and stuff. They're all such good guys. Everybody wants to save homes. I've never met a bad apple on a fire that wasn't there to save a life or to save a home and takes it very seriously. That's why we're there. There's really not enough money in it to do it if you don't care about people. And it's probably the most uncomfortable job that there is, hiking with your PPE on and everything. And the reason that I bring that up is because it's really hard for us as firefighters to show up to a street. We want to protect all the homes. But if we see a home that's got like pine needles all over the roof and all on the sides and debris and firewood stacked right up against the house and the fire is pending, I mean, you have minutes sometimes, if that. If we have to go and do all the landscaping for your house, we have to pick the homes that we can save. And the reason is because we're going to save every single home if possible, but we have to work on the homes that we're going to save. It's not fair to be cleaning up somebody's whole yard or months and months of dead vegetation that's been allowed to pile up, on the back of a structure. I've seen it go 4 feet deep sometimes. I mean, and hey, I've been there. I mean, my own house has been like, but I didn't know what an issue that could cause in a wildfire event. So all I'm saying is that when they call it defensible space, the reason is because if there's a fire coming and embers are landing and months of dead duff, we might not have the resources to defend that home if it's completely, no maintenance. But if you can clear outdoor furnitures, even mats, tree litter, vegetation right up against your structure, because that acts as kindling, just like a campfire. So that's why it's so important to clear that first 5 feet. And when it comes to safe sauce, we actually call it step zero because we have
Hmm.
steps 1 through 3. And so we try to echo what the fire authorities have been trying to educate homeowners on. And listen, homeowners are smart. So it's a matter of education. There's no finger pointing, and it's about doing interviews like this so that people understand and go, oh, okay, I get it. That's why I need to, take my outdoor furniture and bring it inside, before I
Hmm.
evacuate it, move my floor mats, or that's why I can't, I shouldn't have these bushes growing right up against my house because they're an
Yeah.
ember trap. And if that caught fire, then that could spread to my house because that bush would burn hot enough to actually, go through your siding or go inside of it. So that's why
That's
fire
a
authority.
great point, Nikolai. And this is the first time that personally I've ever had the chance to hear from the human beings on the other side of this, like what a firefighter is seeing and thinking, and how quickly you have to make decisions based on what you see in a neighborhood about which homes are most likely to be saved. We're going to take a quick break, but we have a lot more to talk about on this topic. So don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Well, welcome back to Go Green Radio. We have a very important topic today and a very interesting and thoroughly knowledgeable guest. Nicholai Allen is here with us today, and we're talking about how to get prepared for wildfires, how to prepare your home and your community. And just before the commercial break, we were talking about this concept of defensible space, and I had to cut you off, Nicholai, but I want to give you a chance to say anything more that you'd like to help us understand what defensible space is and how to create it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to explain what it is. So now you kind of understand the human nature of we want to save every single structure. That's why we do what we do. We want to save life first and structures. And firefighters, that I've seen on the line take it very hard, with structure loss, and we really try. So the reason that it's called defensible space is because if there's not basic things done, it almost makes the house indefensible because there's so much to be done. But it can be so overwhelming, and it can be people could say that there's laws coming down or that it's overregulated, and that may be true. So I'm hoping to get action from homeowners to get prepared through education and not requirements or finger pointing. But if we all just understand that the first 5 feet around your structures, and not just your home, your garage, your outbuildings, the first 5 feet, if that can be clear of combustible material, no pallets, no debris, no dead vegetation, no pine needles, if that can be clear, and if you can get your furniture, your outdoor furniture inside and your outdoor mats inside, and then you can take the next steps. But that's why it's called defensible space. The rest of that is outside of the 5 foot zone, going even to 30 feet. You want to have your trees trimmed up off the ground. So in case there is a surface fire coming on the ground, and we can go and dig handline around it and stop it, around your house. You don't want the trees hanging too low or touching the ground, because that ground fire can then catch the tree on fire. If it spreads to the tree, that can spread to other trees and jump like that, called a canopy fire. So we want the trees trimmed up. The other thing that is good and very helpful is if you do have trees, out, they should be trimmed back at least 10 feet from your structures, trimmed up off the ground. And if you have trees around your property, you should try to clear space in the canopy so the trees aren't, all intergrown with each other. If you can free up some space so that if embers land in a tree and catch it on fire or start a spot, it's not automatically spreading to this tree, to the next tree, to the next tree, like you would see in the forest. So around your home, you can create some kind of clearance, and that makes it a lot easier for firefighters to defend your home, because if there's a spot in a tree, they can put that out and it's not automatically spreading to the next tree. Then
That's
in
such
the
great, yeah, that's great advice. And I'm thinking about my own neighborhood, and where we need to take some action. Go ahead.
No, that's good, and I'm glad you're picturing that, and I hope that all your listeners are thinking about their own property and what, some of these little changes that they can make that would actually make a huge difference and help firefighters help you save your home. So we call that step 0, defensible space. That also includes things like Class A roof and dual pane windows, and not having wood, like old unmaintained wood as siding, for example. You want hardy materials. When you move past that, that's when we start the safe SOSS step, safe sauce. So that's step 1, 2, and 3. Step 1 is the carbon guard ember filter, which is cut to size. It looks like a lava rock, but it's cut to size, and you put it on the inside of your exterior vents, like in your attic or your crawl space. Because you can cut it to size, it'll fit behind pretty much anything. You can even double them up for big gable vents. But what that does is it'll help capture even the smallest windborne embers and snuff them out. And it'll also help filter toxins and smoke, even from neighboring fires, because it's coated in activated carbon. So we're starting to see a lot of activated carbon. We understand the benefits of it now. They even make car air conditioner filters with activated carbon and home filters with that. So you're basically doing a heavy duty fire retardant infused filter for your exterior, kind of protecting the lungs of your house so that embers aren't getting into your attic or your crawl space. And
I
that's
want to
super.
have you, yeah, I want to have you talk to us about when to install these. I'm guessing it's not when you get a watch duty alert on your phone to evacuate. Tell
No,
us
no,
about the installation process, including when to do it.
absolutely. Yeah. So that would be like right now. That's probably the best weekend project that you could do immediately um, if you're in a wildfire zone, if you're scared of wildfires, if you might need to evacuate soon, if you're in one of those areas, that's the first thing that I would do, because you cut those to size. You can, screw it into your attic studs, and that can be good year round. So if there's a fire, then you can go and check it and replace it. But these are less than $30. So if you have, two attic vents, you might need a couple. If you have a bigger home, you might need four, but they're less than $30. And that's probably the most immediate weekend project that I would do. And then you follow that with these steps. So steps two is
Before we
ember
go to
tape.
step two,
Yeah.
I have another question. Some people have an elevated, like a crawl space, and they have vents down low on their house. Should these carbon filters go there, or is this really more of a, upper story situation?
No, absolutely. They need to go in the crawl space, because underneath your crawl space is your under floor. It's raw wood.
Hmm.
You have embers go in there and get stuck up in your joists or your floor joists, then they can catch the house on fire, just like the attic. Um, I took a gentleman back to his house after the Palisades fire, which I fought in. All the structures that I happened to be there protecting, from Malibu to Beverly Hills, were okay. Either the fire didn't make it there, or we had ember protection in place so that when the ash and embers were falling, it didn't then ignite that house. So I took a gentleman back to his house, and he saw the embers go in through his garage door, and they caught the garage roof on fire. And that brings us to step two. And it's something that I wish I had on many fires with me, which I now do. We have it on our fire engines, but it's a high heat ember tape. It's a 4-inch wide fiberglass tape, same thing that fire blankets are made out of at their core. It's fiberglass, so extremely heat resistant and pressure sensitive tape. So you can actually temporarily seal up that gap in your garage door or your exterior door threshold. If you have a doggy door, even, you can temporarily seal it up. If you have odd sized vents or weep holes that you can't get behind, you can't put the ember guard, you can temporarily seal those up from the outside with this tape in the ready or set phase before you even evacuate. And then you can come back and just peel it off. So you can kind of
Hmm.
seal up your front door too. If you're evacuating, then when you come back, you kind of can break that seal. And you've also helped stop not only embers, but the smoke getting in through those gaps that you're sealing up with the tape. So that's step two. Step three is actually what started the whole thing. And that's a clear, non toxic fire retardant that you can actually apply now with your own 3/4 inch garden hose.
Well, and talk to us about, when to do that and the need to reapply during fire season. Like, how many times might a homeowner use that?
Yeah. So the spray, it comes with a gallon of concentrate and the nozzle and the straw that you need. It's got a 5-year shelf life. So a lot of people are saying, apply it every quarter and every season. I I don't know that that's feasible. I mean, I personally can't even afford to do that myself, and I don't want to be coating my property every 3 months. I would have it on hand if I'm going to travel and I know there might be a fire and I'm not going to be there. Once you do apply the fire retardant, it'll last for up to 3 months, depending on the weather conditions. And you'd only have to reapply it in that time if, for example, it rained or if there was heavy moisture or dew, that was really affecting the vegetation. But you can spray it on uh, your wooden decks, pergolas, and also your vegetation. Because it's phosphate based, it's actually kind of acts as a fertilizer for the vegetation. It won't harm it. And then at our application method, it's non-toxic. It's been tested on marine life, and it's safe to use. And it's safe to use as we direct it for even near waterways and so forth because of the concentration. So um, we did a lot of work to custom make the nozzle and then concentrate it enough that you could use your own garden hose as a dispersal tool. And we've used it on a prescribed burns, and the firefighters I was with were very impressed. I myself was very impressed. And we did a lot of tests before we made it available to homeowners. So that 1 gallon, if you can just have it in your garage, it'll treat 400 square feet. But you don't need to spray your Class A roof. You know, you need to keep your roof clear of debris or tree droppings and so forth. But you don't need to spray your roof or concrete. So when I say it treats 400 square feet, that's your wood fencing, which you shouldn't have within 5 feet of your home either. You should try to replace that with aluminum. That's part of the home hardening and defensible space. But when you do have combustibles, even in that 5 to 30 foot zone around your home, some people, like in Malibu, wealthier folks have vegetation growing over stone that's been there for 30 years, and they don't want to lose it in a fire. So they coat it, to make sure that it's not igniting. So basically, spray it on what you don't want to have catch fire, even if it's further out from your house, or a wooden deck by your house, or wooden under eaves, or any place where there might be anything combustible. Even if you have painted wood, but it's kind of older or chipping or cracked, then you could coat that too. It takes about 5 minutes to treat 400 square feet twice over. So we say, spray an eave, for example, from one direction, spray it from the other direction too. Just make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies of it, and it'll foam up for 5 to 10 minutes. So you can see where you applied it, but literally in 10, 15 minutes, it soaks in to the wood or vegetation, and it looks like there's nothing there, but there's this like invisible layer of ignition resistance. It's really,
Amazing.
really cool, actually.
That is amazing. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we have a lot more pro tips from Nicholai on how to get prepared for wildfires. So don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Hey everybody, welcome back to Go Green Radio. So glad that you could tune in and join us because our guest today, Nicholai Allen, who is a firefighter himself and also the founder of a company called Safe Soss, or Safe SOSS. You can check out his website at Safe Soss, and that's SOSS.com. We're talking about how to get prepared for a wildfire. And this became really personal for me this week. I'll explain later. But Nicholai, if you're going to leave yourself time to do things like use the ember tape that you mentioned in the last segment, or do a last spray with the fire retardant spray that Safe Soss offers, you need to be ready to go. And so I know on your website you have some resources, and I want you to talk about the resources that you recommend for people so that they can prepare their go bags and other items that they need to think about in emergency so that they have some time to do this taping and spraying to protect their home before they go.
Yeah, absolutely. First thing I'll say is that time and time again, I always find that luck seems to favor the prepared. It's a crazy thing. I run into it all the time. Um, it's almost like annoying for some people, but it just happens to be the case. Just the luck seems to favor the prepared. So when you're talking about, and also, just as a parent or a family member, or if you're taking care of other people, if you're the head of your household, you'll sleep so much better at night knowing that you're prepared and that you have a plan, because we're talking about the safety, of your family. So when it comes to that, talk to your kids, talk to your family, your relatives, have a plan. Know what evacuation routes are possible in case you do have to evacuate, because you might check traffic and one way is blocked. So you might decide to go another way. You should have multiple routes just in case. A lot of people during evacuation are panicked, totally understandable, and sometimes that can create some minor traffic collisions or other kind of chaotic situations, and you need to have a backup plan. So be prepared to leave, and save your life first, and part of that preparation is having a go bag. So your valuable documents, your change of clothes, anything that your computers, and then have a plan of what car are you going to take. Can you fit all your pets in the car? What are you going to do about that? But if you prepare to evacuate and kind of have a go bag ready, hopefully you don't have to use it. Hopefully the wind will shift and the fire doesn't come towards you. But being prepared, I promise, will give you so much more peace of mind, and that'll help you enjoy your life in the wild and urban interface when there's not an active wildfire. That peace of mind of being prepared. But I would have that stuff ready. Have multiple evacuation routes. If you're meeting relatives somewhere, have communication plan just in case, or a meetup point. Have a backup meetup point. Like in Paradise, for example, people started going to a meetup location and then that shifted. I told you myself in the Woolsey fire, I wanted to go and stay with family that were in a different city, a couple of towns over, and then I couldn't. So then we all, finally somehow communicated and then started heading towards the coast, and then we couldn't even go there either. So you kind of need some multiple options, in case you have to get all the way out of town. And nobody likes evacuating. I've evacuated, many times, or
Yeah.
I've been on a fire when my family has to evacuate, but I always tell them to get ready early, be ready, evacuate early, stay safe. Don't, try to stay behind.
Yeah,
I've seen,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's a bad idea. And we have lots of stories about why that can be a bad idea. But some of the checklists that you list on your website have great ideas that people need to think about, like medicine. If your go bag should have life-saving medicines that you need, and a lot of other things. And so I really recommend that our listeners get out on your website, safesoss.com, safesauce.com. And a lot of local utility companies also have wildfire and other disaster preparedness checklists. There's a lot of places to go for a good, thorough checklist of things that you should have pre-positioned in your home if you have to evacuate. Nicholai, I want to ask you, when you work on a wildland fire or wildfire of that may be closer to a residential area, or you talk to firefighters that have been in residential areas, what are some of the common vulnerabilities that maybe you haven't discussed yet, besides defensible space, that you all see when you're in a residential zone, that you wish homeowners knew?
I think it depends on the city. When I'm out
Hmm.
fighting forest fires, there's usually a little bit more space, but they're really close to trees. Sometimes in the more densely populated areas, people like their privacy. So there's fencing and there's huge, lines of hedges up. And I would just say to please take the windborne embers seriously. And a lot of the homes that I see ignite are starting in the attic or the garage and then spreading to the rest of the house. And you can tell because, for example, that the attic roof will be like fully consumed and the first floor is, not started yet. So in order to fight that, we had to actually break a hole in the roof, and then so that we can get water in there. And it takes an enormous amount of water. And typically at that point, it's already too late. The structure might be considered a total loss. So there's these simple tools that you can use to keep embers out of your structure and then treat things around your house or attached to your house to reduce the ignition, probability of that. And I would say that these tools are created exactly for that purpose. It's You might not be able to afford, there's permanent construction upgrades that I want to do to my own home that I can't afford to do yet. So um, these tools are kind of like a pro grade structure triage. It's things that I would use to like save a home. So these are things that you could do immediately right now as a bare minimum, basically, to give your home a fighting chance. These tools will lead to permanent construction upgrades, but they will help guide you in themselves. Like you're gonna go and get the tape, right? So then you're gonna go walk around your house this weekend and look at where are there gaps. If wind can enter my house, embers can follow right behind it, right? And if enough embers follow right behind it, they might catch something inside, and start it from the inside out. So you'll start looking at these things and looking at your vents, and you're going to decide, you know what, I'm going to get some high heat, fire caulking, and I'm going to, put that around this trim so that the next time I don't have to tape that up because I've already
Yeah.
sealed it with a fire resistant caulking. I'm going to sand and repaint this wood, so that it's not
Hmm.
porous anymore, and embers won't, stick inside the cracks. All these things, just apply these basic tools, because just literally read the box from the store and it'll kind of guide you. And then that will help you confront and look around your structure. I know a lot of people don't want to go in their attic or their crawl space, but as a homeowner, I can tell you, like, I never wanted to go in my attic, and then I finally did, and there was like destruction from rodents and stuff. So I know it's
Uh-huh.
not comfortable, but it is something that if you own a home, you want to be familiar with your attic. You want to make sure everything is looking okay down there. So it's a good idea to do this exercise and really, get an understanding for your home and where the vulnerabilities are and start to kind of patch those up. So I would have these standing by immediately, but these tools will actually help you start to move towards what are some of the most affordable, simple, permanent construction upgrades that I could do that will further harden my home so that um, I can apply less of this next time.
Yeah.
Treat you might treat your vegetation, and you might decide, you know what, that took too long. I'm gonna get rid of some of this stuff, and I'm gonna keep 1 gallon, so I don't need 4 gallons, to treat all
Hmm.
people. So it's a very good gateway towards you understanding kind of the science and the preparation, for a wildfire that can actually help protect your home.
Nikolai, I can't help but think about, residents who may be disabled or maybe elderly, and this kind of stuff is hard for them. What can communities do to kind of set up a situation where people can get some help preparing their residents
Yeah.
for wildfires?
So I myself live in Simi Valley, Ventura County, California. I have a elderly woman in her 70s that's 2 doors down from me. So we just recently had the Sandy fire. It was actually the first fire that I was actually home for. I wasn't
Oh,
out on a fire after the Woolsey fire. So it was great to be here, but I passed out, safe sauce to all my neighbors. I was helping educating them. They were all pre-treating their spaces. And then I personally took my elderly neighbor down to her ex-husband, who then, took her to a safe town. So she was evacuated for about a week. So neighbors have to help neighbors. The other reason is that your home is kind of as safe as your neighbors. And I know that could be a kind of sore point, between neighbors. It's like I'm doing all these preps and my neighbor is like not doing anything. So what I try to encourage is education and help, because that'll break through barriers as opposed to like mandates and laws and, getting into a battle. And who wants to live with neighbors that they have like a disagreement with? So it's almost like when you live in these more rural areas, I've found that us neighbors are actually, it brings us closer because there's the response time is longer for first responders. They might be further out, than inner city. So as neighbors, we really have to come together. There's a program that I really, really support called Firewise from the NFPA. They have a lot of good tips. It's all a lot of science-based things, but they reward you. So neighbors can come together. You can create a Firewise community. The safe sauce tools count, as money spent towards wildfire mitigation, including your defensible space and everything. You keep track of all the money that you spend on your tree trimming and your landscaping and your home hardening, if you're enclosing your eaves, with hardy board and then stuccoing it so that, it's no longer just wide open wood. All these things count towards recognition basically as a Firewise community. And then you can actually get a discount on your homeowners insurance with those recognitions. And the discount varies per carrier, but more and more carriers are starting to get on board with, okay, we better understand the science of structure loss from wildfires with these windborne embers. These are basic steps that you can take. The safe sauce tools are actually supplementing those actions, so it makes it even better. So you could do those steps and then supplement that with safe sauce, and it makes it even stronger. And then you could get that recognition. But I really think that, especially in our rural communities or in the wildland or in interface, we need to come together as neighbors. If you have a disabled or an elderly neighbor, call them. It's one of the first things I did is I called my neighbor. If they didn't answer, I would go over there and knock on the door, make sure that they're okay, make sure that they're evacuated. So it's just something that we have to do. And part of that is because you want to make sure that the neighbor's house is also safe and that they're not there.
Mhm.
Because the safer your neighbor's house is, if that doesn't catch fire, then that makes your house safer. So we all have to
I
work
love
together.
that.
Yeah.
I love that, Nikolai. And I think, knowing that there's an opportunity to, I mean, fire insurance for homeowners is getting wildly expensive, and knowing that there are things that you can do to bring that cost down by investing in some of these preventative measures is great news. First time hearing of it, and I'm excited. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but don't go away, folks. There's more Go Green Radio right after this. Welcome back to Go Green Radio, everybody. So glad that you could join us for this very important topic of preparing for fire season with Nicholai Allen, our guest today. Nikolai, before we went on commercial break, you were talking about how communities could rally together in their neighborhoods to help improve the fire preventative nature of the whole block. But I'm wondering, could like school buildings and other public buildings use the safe sauce products and methodology as well?
Absolutely, and they should. It's the same concept. So this actually goes to any structure, no matter how big or small. You want to prevent kindling from being right up against the structure. So vegetation, wooden fences, any combustibles, debris, dead vegetation. And you want to protect the structure from windborne embers getting inside those exterior ventilated areas. And so it applies to any structure, really.
Hmm. I want you to tell us a little bit more about where to find the products, and also a little bit more about what you've done to develop and test them so that our viewers know just how credible and reliable they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So Safe SOSS is actually over 5 years in the making. It took a lot of research and development to get concentration strengths and a nozzle that would suck up enough concentration and work with multiple, pressure ranges from your garden hose. And um, so much testing goes into the active ingredients that are there. So on prescribed fires, we protected, wildlife sanctuaries, where we'd spray a perimeter around it and send, 8-foot wall of flames at it and then see, what it does. And the guys I was with were, constantly impressed with what this could do since it was just applied with a 3/4 inch garden hose and not, dropped out of a plane. But at its core, I believe the reason that fire retardant had a bad name was because it used to contain trace amounts of fluorine. And we didn't know fluorine was bad, back in the day. So, Safe Sauce, we've been able to develop it from scratch with it never had any fluorine in it and is considered non toxic. What they're dropping out of the planes, I don't know everywhere, but I can almost guarantee you that there's no longer fluorine in it, which was found to have been a carcinogen. So, formulations change over time, but we've been lucky with Safe Sauce where we could have a formula where there are no added, fluorines in it. So there's still materials, in plastics or maybe the garden hose that you're using, might have trace amounts of something. So we're still learning and evolving. But we can, start from scratch and say, okay, we're not adding any, harmful materials into the concentrate. But the core active ingredient, ammonium phosphate, and this is another good point too. So when people open this spray and it's concentrated dose, it should smell like ammonia. And if it does, then it hasn't been tampered with or refilled or whatever, and that's a good thing. When it's diluted, that smell goes away in about 5 minutes. But at its core, the reason I say that is because that's what is used on forest fires, to a degree. Like that core ingredient, the ammonium phosphate base, has been proven over 60 years to slow or stop the rate of ignition from fire. So we know that's effective. And on prescribed burns, in addition to controlling a perimeter, so sometimes on firefighters can spray what's called a wet line. So we just use plain water. If the fire will reach it fast enough and it's still wet, that's fine. It should stop there. But if it dries, like in 1 hour in small, thatch or grass, that'll dry within an hour. And then the water will be totally ineffective and the grass will just keep burning. If you spray this, even it can dry, you still have that like coating, that will create a char ignition resistance, like a char layer, and try to slow or stop the fire there. And you can see videos of it too on Safe Sauce of prescribed burns. So we would even treat like the lower 8 feet of power lines, when we're doing a prescribed burn in a field that's got power poles because you don't want to catch the power line on fire. So we use it on high value, asset protection, kind of including, homes in Malibu and Beverly Hills. I'm talking really large, estates that need, 60 gallons, 70 gallons because the property's so huge, but very high value target. So we've been using this now for some years to protect those targets and on our wild and brush trucks that we're taking out for some of those protections or prescribed burns. And a similar core ingredient is built into the carbon filter when it's even formed. The polycarbon matrix is literally formed to be ignition resistant and self-extinguishing. So if you try to set it on fire, it will actually put itself out. And you can see videos as well of embers hitting the ember guard and just getting blocked and snuffed out. Whereas if you have like a 1/8 inch metal mesh, you can see the embers just ripping right past it. So we recommend 1/16 inch metal mesh or code approved vents on the exterior, and then the carbon filter would supplement that. So this is not a replacement for any permanent construction or building codes. This is something that you could do right now this weekend to help protect your home immediately.
And where can our viewers find your products? Where do we buy them?
So Lowe's, exclusively at Lowe's right now. I am a firefighter. I don't have a big distribution network, and Lowe's has been actually great at wanting to help their customers and helping make this available because they have distribution, they have the warehouses, they have the store locations. So we're in select Lowe's stores from Colorado, Utah, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington, and California, northern California, all the way down to Southern California, and also available at Lowe's.com. So if you're not sure
Mhm.
what store has it near you, or if you have time to get it, you can order it from Lowe's.com, and they'll ship it right to your door. So that's the
Yeah,
best way.
yep, it's really easy to get a hold of it. Lowe's.com is simple or a local store. And you can see right on the Lowe's website whether or not it's available at your local store. And if not, just order it. Um,
Yes.
I really want to support your company, Safe SOSS, Safe Sauce. And so tell us what a successful next year or 2 years would look like for you. What would be considered a win for your company?
I just hope that people try it. I hope people realize that there has been a lot of research, and we have isolated kind of the main reasons that structures are lost to wildfire. And every home deserves that, fighting chance. And I think that homeowners will feel so much better, doing what you can to protect your home. And I hope that it also makes you uh, empowered and more in control and willing to evacuate earlier and safer, knowing that you've already prepped it. Um, so I hope that people will go and try it, and give it a shot and get familiar with it. And I hope that it leads to more life safety with people evacuating early and staying safe, and that it leads to a lot less structure loss.
Well, I want to thank you, Nikolai, for being with us today. What you've done and how you have turned your own experiences into a purpose-driven company that will help others is really inspiring. And so I hope that our listeners will get out on Safe Sauce. That's SAFESOSS.com, and check out these products, check out the methodology, and get to work. You've got a honey-do list this weekend, everybody, to prepare your home for wildfire. It hit my own town this week, and there were a lot of people who had to evacuate. Fortunately, everyone is safe, but it became very personal really quickly this week for me and my neighbors. So I want to make sure that I give you a chance to give us like 20 seconds of parting thoughts. If there's anything else that you'd like to share, Nikolai.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm glad we're having this talk, even for you and your neighbors. That's what it's going to take, is just helping spread the word. I don't have a huge amount to spend on advertising. I'm really just trying to help people. Um, but I would say that one of the biggest mistakes is just thinking it's never going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Please don't make that mistake. You know, luck favors the prepare. So please take action now and don't wait. And I promise you'll sleep better at night.
Thank you, Nicholai. And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners for joining us. We'll be here same time, same place next week with more Go Green Radio. Until then, have a wonderful week and do something in your